Long day lay low. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another Get to Know Your Creator. We have a great one today. Determined. He's determined. This is a very determined man. He gets a lot of books out there, a lot of high quality stuff. I'm a fan of his artwork. But before we introduce the main man, we got our lovely co-host Angela Curry. What's going on, Angela?
Not much. How are you doing today, Jason?
Oh, I'm doing better. I've been sick all week, and this is actually one of the. I was starting to feel better yesterday, so.
I was gonna say you're
yeah.
more like yourself.
Yeah,
So
and I go back to work tomorrow, so yay.
Does it feel like the beginning of school? You know, like when you get those, going back jitters,
no,
something like that. That's good.
No. Not at all. I don't get that way. But we're here for a wonderful human being. I'm a fan. I am a fan. I wasn't lying. I do like his artwork. I don't really read much, but thankfully he doesn't write a whole lot of dialogue. What's going on, NARWHAL?
Hey, how's it
NARWHAL.
going? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, hey, thanks for Angela said you wanted to come on, and I appreciate you wanting to come on, man.
I heckled him to come on. What are you talking about?
Oh, you did? Okay, never mind. She coerced you into coming on. Sorry. My apologies, sir.
Just kidding. No. No, he admitted like a while back. He's like, yeah, I want to come on. And so I just kind of
oh, yeah, that's right, because I did follow up. Yeah, because you invited me on in the chat, and I was like, sure. But then you never followed up, and I was like, maybe I should follow up. So I did.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean,
that's how you do the old switcheroo.
The old
switcheroo.
Like,
who's
I
doing
make
who
you
the
want to
favor
come
here?
on.
That's right.
You guys are doing me the favor. I appreciate it. Yeah.
No, well, I mean, is that the case? Because I mean, you're not an unknown, so you're kind of doing me a favor by getting my channel out there amongst maybe just some different people. So I thank you in return, sir.
Yeah, if you're here just to watch me in the chat for the first time, like and subscribe, especially subscribe.
Thanks, appreciate that.
Yeah.
And speaking of the chat, before we get started, Angela, who's in there? We got to hop in chat.
Oh, yes, we do. Before we started, we would say we got Maromi here.
Yeah, we got Maromi was the first one.
Maromi, yeah, he's dropping the links too. So hail Maromi on that.
Hail Maromi. We've
got Ray Haylock, the Tugs web guy.
Ray?
So hail. Yep. Peter Orchard is in the house.
Hey, what's going on, Peter?
And the very lovable Snuggie Jr. has arrived.
Hey, what's going on, Snuggie? Yeah, everybody, appreciate you watching, and if you're watching on the replay, thank you very much. And also, if you're watching on the replay and you don't want to hear any of this garbage, you just want to check out NARWHAL's book. Link is pinned at the top of the chat as well as in the description below. Go there, look at it. Yeah, I'm a fan, dude. I am a fan. I love your artwork. I have a. Yo, what's up, Jolly Green? I have Foreign Agent. I have the Nosferatu book. I love your style, man. It's so different. I could tell a NARWHAL when I see it, and I'm a big fan of stuff like that.
Thanks.
How did you go about developing that style? Because it's very it's almost like an animation style, but like in between frames. It's really cool.
Yeah, I do sort of have an answer to that question. It was the first and only semi-mainstream job I ever had when I was like 29. I had been going to some comic conventions here and there, and this is like pre-Earthbound, pre-everything. I just had a few sort of projects. I dabbled with just in indie with other writers that weren't really going anywhere. They weren't fully done or anything, but my portfolio was there. So this one journalist took my number and he emailed me 2 weeks later and he's like, I actually have a book deal, but I lost my artist. So if you want to do it, we can do it. But otherwise I might just lose my book deal. And I was like, I think I want to do it. And he's like, can you write, draw, and color 120 pages in 1 year? And I was
geez.
I was like, yes. And he's like, letter.
Have you done,
wow.
Like how much, like, have you done any of that before? Like,
no, not really. Like, I mean, the pages I had drawn, like in my career up to that point was like maybe 300 or 400 just from like little anthologies and little false starts. And I was still kind of learning.
Right.
And, but because of that project, I was like, all right, to do it in time, I'm going to switch to digital. I'm not going to do traditional anymore. And then I'm going to hire an Indian guy for $5 an hour to help me flat it on Craigslist.
Wow.
So I did that.
Oh,
and
man.
then with those two things, and at first it took like 20 pages or so to even like kind of find the style, but that was the early version of the style. And I've even like a way I kind of put it in my head. I'm like, I do want it to look like animation, where the kind of main idea being that the rendering is not from the inking, it'll be from the coloring, and it doesn't have to be like crazy rendering, but the ink lines are just to hold the colors like they are for animation cells or like that kind of. And animation, as it's gone on, I've kind of developed it a little more, but animation has a very collage friendly kind of approach where they support and enjoy multiple styles layered over the top of each other. Like specifically, even like Disney, it's like painted backgrounds with the flat cells of the character, and that separation is kind of fun. It makes it very readable and nice. And so I'm straight up kind of trying to steal that. I just like how animation looks, and I've always kind of just tried to make it. But it was a lot of it was, sometimes it is for style. It's like shortcuts from necessity that I just kind of had to work fast. So I was figuring out the fastest way and have it still look good, and that kind of just became my style pretty much.
And you were able to bang out that 100 that you were able to meet your deadline on that project.
Yeah, hit it in time. And actually, for part of the Narwhal origin story, it was that company. The book was called Machete Squad, and it was the journal and the actual medic who had done 2 tours in Afghanistan. His name is Brent Duloc. They're both pretty cool guys. I actually can't think of the journalist's name. Kevin Nodal is the journalist, and so they had written the script, and it was for a company called Dead Reckoning. And so that book, it got released and it's out there. People can buy it now on Amazon. And it's cool if you're exploring like early Narwhal stuff. But I just wrote it, and I think I wrote 1 line of dialogue that just came up through the lettering process. But that's uncredited. But if anyone, I'll DM someone, I forget, that's like a whole separate story. Because the 1 line of dialogue I wrote was kind of funny. It was like making me laugh. I was like, I put my thumbprint on this project by like inserting a little bullshit line where it shouldn't be, kind of. But it's still cool. It's cool.
Nice.
No, that's always nice to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So Dead Reckoning, though, after that finished, I didn't have anything else. So I was like, shit, I've kind of been a pro artist. They paid like basically minimum wage, but that job was like, it lasted for a year. So it was like thousands of dollars. I was paying rent and buying food off that job while I was working on it. And then that ended. And then I was like, crap, am I going to have to like go back to the Fred Meyer Deli or whatever minimum wage? And so I pitched them for an agent of the company, and they got back to me. And this is early CG too. And I was still staying like super early CG, but I was like not even fully in CG. I was just a lurker. And I pitched them for an agent, and then they said, everyone here at the office loves it, but we're going to pass. And I was like, fuck you guys, I'm joining CG then. So I started hanging out immediately publicly with CG. They immediately called me and they're like, hey, we can't help but notice that you're hanging around a guy who like called women cum dumpsters and stuff like that, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah. And they're like, well, can you just wait till the tour's over? I'm like, no. Like, so that I haven't talked to any of them since then, really, at all.
To be fair, he didn't call all women that, just really one. But yeah. But the other thing is like they're using one thing against people, or like one little snippet. Like it's like taking things out of context. And they do that a lot. Yeah.
The game plan that I've seen it over and over again is, it's like a sports analogy too, where like the ref will call the reaction. So you do got to keep that in mind even, but they fuck with you until if you have the balls to fuck back to them, all of a sudden they're the victim, and that's evidence against you for all time. And because it's like Heather Antos, she was trying to get his Patreon taken down, trying to get his YouTube taken down. She's trying to ruin his life. She's blacklisting him, trying to end his business deals, and just so much crap. And then he calls her a cum dumpster, and suddenly like that's the end of the world or whatever.
Yeah, that was like, oh, how dare you say that about a woman? Yeah. It's like there's only one side to everything for a lot of people, and they don't look at things in a whole context and the whole picture of a lot of stuff. So you were like, when you're an early entrepreneur into this, like where were you first? Because was Earthbound first or for an agent?
Earthbound was first.
Earthbound was first, but. So what got you into the eye set of like, because you Ethan really caught on to you and liked your stuff. Zach likes your stuff. Like, who did you kind of mesh with first and trying to get at here?
So with Earthbound, even I think it was like I was drawing Machete Squad, I launched right around then I launched a crowdfund for Earthbound, but it was just the first floppy edition, the first 36 pages.
What's
And
up?
that was on Kickstarter because it was pre Indiegogo, pre any
Right.
it was before Jawbreakers and Cyberfrog. And that one it was the Captain Cummings had
Mhm.
actually retweeted it, and he was like, "Hey, this guy's like kind of one of us. Back it if you can." Got like one backer from that, like bless him. But this just like to illustrate that it's kind of pre CG. Like it
Right.
wasn't that organization to even get out there to get it seen. So that one, it actually was a successful campaign, but it only raised $2,000, and I was kind of begging friends and family to back it.
Mm.
And so I hadn't even thought of like the possibility of crowdfunding being a way to kind of make a living yet. But then a year later, the trade was done. So it was a full 140 page thing. And I was crowdfunding that. And by then, Cyberfrog had happened and Jawbreakers had happened. CG kind of was a thing. And Ethan, I did some fan art of Cyberfrog. Someone retweeted it to Ethan, and he's like, "Damn, this is cool. Who's this guy?" And so he had me on the very early iteration of Comicsgate Live, and
Mhm.
I came on behind the scenes. He sent me the link. I was super nervous, so I like, well, when he we're like behind the scenes, and he's like, "Do I call you Narwhal?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess." And he's like, "Your life's about to change, buddy." And I was like, "Oh wow." And I was like, "I'm
What
nervous.
year
Can
was
I?"
this? What year?
This is like 2018 or
Yeah,
Okay.
this
late
is before
2017 even.
I came into the scene. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet.
And then I said, "I'm so nervous. Can I run and get some beers?" He's like, "I guess." So I ran and got beer. And then they had already
Nice.
started by the time I got back, and I cracked my beer into the mic and I chugged a bunch of beer to like loosen up. I don't drink these days, but I kind of was drinking too much. I was getting fat like 3 years ago now, and I quit drinking. But I drank a lot back in the day, and even early CG. There's like legends and lore of like drunk narwhal. A lot of the streams are now taken down, but
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah, I
now
don't
you're
remember
Swalwell,
drunk.
right?
He's
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
trying to be.
swole
Yeah.
wall. Yeah. Well, I remember you working out on streams, man.
I
You were
know. Chopping the wood.
Yeah.
you were at it, dude. You were at it. I don't work out on streams. I mean, I do try to exercise and stuff, and I think body and mind, you try to keep cohesion.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Ethan reached out to you, and yeah, like he said, yeah, that'll change everything if you get on like his channel, and even to me, CG, indie, what is it, Iron Age, like it's all an indie comic scene, and to get on Ethan's channel, it's a big push. It's a big push, to get on there, and it's really cool that he likes your stuff. To me, I would almost rather that. Like I would rather like if they never have me on, but they like my stuff. I kind of
Yeah.
would rather that. Like I just want to be like semi respected, amongst like the pros. You know what I mean? So to get on there, like he obviously likes your stuff. Then to me, that's a big nod. That's a big compliment. Like, how did you feel about that?
Yeah, for a long time there, it was like for about almost like a year even. It was like a little bit like too good to be true. I was like blacked out from not understanding what was happening in my life because my life was changing. Because then like part of it even is like that first stream with Ethan, I think it might have gone up like $800 maybe, which actually isn't even that crazy. Like for me, I think the record I've ever done, I think like Cerberus might have done 14 grand on day one with Ethan's help. We like launched it together.
Yeah, I remember
Um,
Cerberus.
and that's like,
Oh,
you
wow.
get like kind of high from that, but even
Mhm.
in that early stage, 800 in one night. And I was thinking like, oh, this is like 2 weeks straight of working at the Fred Meyer
Yeah,
Deli.
dude. Putting it in context, yeah.
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 And so it was just blowing my mind kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. And so like you like Ethan had you on and stuff because then after that, I know didn't Zach like he did a review of Earthbound, didn't he? And like
Yeah.
didn't that
Yes.
kind of get out there?
Yeah. And even with
And
that,
his
like
like
the two things real
one.
quick is I emailed him very early in the game because he had been making these videos, and I said in the email, I'm like, hey, based on what you're saying in your videos, I think you might like my book. And I sent him Earthbound, and he responded and said,
Really?
he said it won't open for me. So I was like, I sent him another file. I said, try this one, and I never heard back. So then cut to like 2 years later, and then he tweeted out, and my art was out there, and he goes, I find this art style very compelling. And then that even now, but back then too, there was kind of a lot of debate. Like I'd have like sort of haters, you might say, but I was
Right.
not big enough to even have haters. But and everyone's entitled to their opinion. It's not even like right or wrong. But I've noticed too, though, in the end, it kind of helps me because then you get people defending your art, and everyone's talking about you, and it's a little bit like you're kind of the center of attention. Like that can inevitably like help your business, sort of. And the way that you mentioned is kind of recognizable, so it's kind of like a brand. But he
Yeah.
liked it. So then I emailed him then, and I was like, if I would do something with you. And he's like, yeah, maybe, but I'm not sure what's your rates. And then he emailed me a little bit after that, and he's like, you know what? I think I can't do artsy fartsy stuff right now. I got to stick with the superhero stuff.
Artsy fartsy stuff.
Yeah,
Oh,
and I was like, okay. And then he got Earthbound because he had backed it, and then he did the review. So it ended up being lucky that. Because if he would have read that email that I initially sent him, it's a little bit of like a Inception type thing. Like he would have been like, "Oh yeah, this is really great, kid. Keep going. Nice job." But
Right.
because he did kind of discovered it on his own, so he was all excited. He like made this huge video. He's like, "I've just found the best book of crowdfunding that I've seen yet." Blah blah blah.
You're a
this book is
savant,
cool."
right?
Yeah. He
That's
called
where
me
the
like a
savant
genius.
came out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Savant.
and
Yeah.
so that was great. And then the book actually sold out in one day because of that.
Oh
review.
wow.
And that's when I
Nice.
quit the Fred Meyer Deli. I was working part-time still because I wasn't sure. But after that happened, I quit the Fred Meyer Deli. Things were great. And then I did email Zach pretty quickly after that. And I was like, hey, we've talked actually 3 different times. I don't know if I told him that, but this is the 3rd time I've reached out. I'm like, you like my book so much. I am interested in working with you if you ever want to. And that time he was like, absolutely, let's do it. Anything, we got to make it happen. And that kind of became Narzak.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah, I know you guys. You did $4.99, and I think you said you had another project maybe down the road or something like that. I mean, I hear things once in a while and I forget them, or maybe I think I hear things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're working on one-ish now, like early development and we've done like 4 or 5 together, and it's been cool. And that has been one I do try to reflect and appreciate it because it is like he is like not scared to kind of like talk me up in his videos, even these days. Like he said the other day, he was talking about Sean Gordon Murphy. He's like, Sean Gordon Murphy, why did you take Mags under your wing of all people? And then she tries to cancel you. He's like, you're just trying to like play to this crowd, and it's like so dumb. He's like, you should take Narwhal under your wing. And I was like, oh, dude, that's kind of nice. That's cool.
That's
Yeah,
really nice
that's
of
a-
him. Yeah,
that's
it I think style also to me it's a good thing. Like you said earlier, it's like a fingerprint. It's like it's like an identifier. And but do you think sometimes it might even hurt an artist to have a totally different, unique style? Because like I often refer to myself as like an artist. Like a lot of my friends who are artists love my stuff, but a common fan is like, it's not it's not Michael Turner. It's not all these other guys that are in the mainstream or whoever, style is popular. It's like off the beat. Do you think it might hurt sales sometimes to be in that because you're kind of, I view you as an artist with the way you illustrate.
Yeah,
and
I can
do
relate
things.
to what you're saying. Yeah, like a lot of artists like my stuff, and then the mainstream not quite as much. I think you're right. It can hurt you a little bit, but there's also like a potential for it to help you too as it becomes more like people just get used to it, and they
Yeah.
get less averse to it, and that can kind of spread. And then maybe if you're lucky, then like you're the guy that people are imitating, and then you're really sitting pretty if that ever happens, something like that.
True. Yeah, that's a good point. What kind of like now I know you kind of do like you like the animation stuff like that, but like as far as comics go, what were you into when you were younger? Like, did you read comics, or is this just something like you kind of got into gradually as you like to do artwork?
Yeah, I got really into it in high school and just kind of started with like classics and graphic novels and stuff, like obviously Dark Knight and Watchmen. But I also read like Mouse. Like a lot of it's like
Mhm.
just almost like college course type stuff. So I was reading all those. But my first artist who was my favorite to the point of being kind of formative was Tim Sale, and
Oh yeah.
he has a little bit. He has that thin ink line that is almost like an animation cell. But then he also does really awesome like black spot blacks, which I don't do as much. But I totally love his style, and I bought pretty much everything he did for a long time, and that was like a big influence.
Cool.
Yeah, Tim Sale is fantastic, and you could tell he was also influenced by some Frank Miller stuff and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
just with those hard shadows and stuff. So yeah, dude, I love Tim Sale's work.
Sweet.
He was fantastic. So like you mainly probably shopped and looked according to like the artist, and not so much the title. Like you weren't like I'm a Spider-Man fan, hard and true. Like you were just like I like this artist, so I'm gonna follow that guy wherever he goes.
Yeah, and then through that, I did get it like more into Batman, but when I was a kid, I loved X-Men, but I never got super into the X-Men comics, and even later when I might have, like even nowadays, whatever, they're like kind of weird or they're not as cool, kind of. But
Are you aren't you into the manga and anime stuff too?
yeah, I dabbled in that, but I don't know what I've read like Berserk, and I've watched some anime like Death Note, but I not a ton. I'm not exactly like a weeb, but all the
How much? No, go ahead. Go ahead.
just not the 26 episode shows. I've seen like a handful of those basically, and all the movies like Wicked
Right.
City. You guys know that one? Ninja
Mhm.
Scroll,
I
Ninja
know
Scroll, and
Ninja
Wicked
Scroll.
City.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Ninja Scroll's dope.
I've learned
dude.
more about anime joining CG than I've like ever before. So
Well,
Yeah.
people like and there's that huge argument: manga, anime, Western style, and you kind of. I think you should just adapt it all almost and look at the good compared to like just the oversaturation. You know what I mean? Like it can be overly saturated and just be garbage because it's popular doesn't mean it's good. But
Yeah.
look at like Berserk is fantastic. I'm not a big manga guy or an anime guy, but I do cherry pick, and I have a Berserk book. I mean, it's thick, and I flip through that. It's beautiful. Like the artwork's stunning. So
Yeah.
yeah, it to me. I don't think people should be shying away from the manga. People are like, "Oh, it's defeating Western." It's like adapt it, bring it in, and accept it, and learn from it, grow. So
Yeah. Yeah, I remember thinking too when I was kind of developing of like even what I liked and stuff that I was like, I like manga and I would like manga better than American style if they didn't draw the eyes so big. So I kept kind of thinking that I'd like look for like, is there such thing as a manga style where they don't draw the eyes so big? And it turns out that is kind of like European style, and it's almost geographic. It's like the mix between American and manga. It's right in the middle geographically. It's like Europe is kind of the mix, and you can find a lot of good stuff there. And
Nice.
there's an artist Bengal who became a pretty good influence too. He kind of does that thing where the rendering is more about the coloring than the ink line.
Mhm.
That I kind of and he does it like way better than me even. And he's famous now. He works for Marvel and stuff. I think
Oh,
he's
wow.
kind of wasted on Marvel. He works with Rick Remender on some bullshit, something like that.
Well, it's like I mean, I will state I joke with Billy a lot and with the anime, and I make fun of it, and I will make fun of One Piece till the day I die, just because it gets under his skin. Billy Basco, just it's
Yeah.
fun. I like having fun, but like that's the thing. People like her. Oh, waste. You know, honestly, dude, if Marvel approached me, it's like we will guarantee you like a good sum of money if you draw like this. I would do it, dude. I'm sorry, I would. I want to live comfortably. I want my family to be taken care of. You know what I mean? So is it selling out to me? No. If that guy's getting paid decently, it's a steady paycheck. Good. Dude, I mean, this crowdfunding scene, it's a risk. There's not always a chance you're going to make it. Books may not get funded. Even look at now, man. Times are tough and the economy is all around. So numbers are down. Like they just are all across the board. So I would now... Is it to me like some people might be wasted depending on the project, I'm sure. And I still collect some mainstream stuff based on the artist. I don't really read anything because I can't, which is kind of probably a blessing. But so do you still collect some mainstream stuff, or are you mainly strictly like a crowdfunder, like supporting like
Yeah.
like Irene and stuff like that?
There's a few mainstream artists that I follow, and it's probably for the art. It's not really a writer I follow. There, I guess in theory there could be, but there kind of isn't. But Matthias Bergara, I'll still kind of buy a fair amount of his work just to like check out the art. I forget what country he's from, but he's a South American awesome artist. I follow him on Twitter.
Nice.
And I did buy some Bengal of that Rick Remender stuff, but I actually really didn't like. I started reading it and just hated it, so I might try and like burn it or sell it or something. But...
Yeah, just sell it. I mean, maybe don't burn it, but,
Yeah.
flip it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you got what you wanted out of it. You saw the artwork, you liked it, you absorbed it, and somebody else might benefit from that. Who knows? You could even give it away to like a Salvation Army. Some little kid might buy it and pick it up for like
Yeah.
50 cents, and they be like, "Oh, I love comics now." You know, you never know what can come of it.
You know who
Maybe
I
not
still
based off the writing, but
Yeah, I still buy and read Mark Miller too, and I've kind of been catching up with his
Yeah.
stuff in retrospect a little bit because
yeah.
Yes.
found him a little bit later in my career. Actually, it was even because through your boy Zach from the Good Foreign Agent Review, Mark Miller started following me on Twitter,
Oh,
and
nice.
I DM'd him and I was like, "Did you follow me
Nice.
because of the Foreign Agent Review?" And he's like, "Absolutely, kid. Been following your work for a while. I think you're doing great stuff. Keep it up."
Wow, that's so
So
awesome.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
pretty
So
cool.
with that, I'm like, oh, I got to read more of Mark
Yeah,
Miller's
you got to
stuff.
read more now.
Yeah, so I've
Yeah,
been
for
going through it
real.
all. There's a lot to like learn and take from. I also there's a thing where like these really talented writers, they are funny. It's almost like esoteric. So I found out from my friend the definition of esoteric is when you don't talk about it, and exoteric means you do talk about it. So
Oh,
anything that's esoteric is kind of meant to be like not talked about. But
Okay.
with some of the
Really good.
writing advice of like Mark Miller, it's sort of esoteric because he'll just say it and then you don't even know what he means, but he knows what he means. So it's like top secret information. And I'm like, this can be decoded and unlocked, like the ancient alchemists. Like we can figure out what he means, like what is encoded in this seemingly normal sentence. But I know I saw one interview with him, and he was talking about Big Game, which is his big crossover event, and
Mhm.
he's like the trick for a good crossover event is it's actually kind of easy. You just got to give every character their big moment, right? That's all you got to
Mm.
do. And I'm like, okay, for one, that's great advice, but for B, like that makes it sound so much easier than it actually is. It's actually like the hardest thing ever to do that, to write a great overlapping kind of thing. And yeah, if you give everyone the big moment, that's like a big part of the ingredient. But I'm like, he's just like blowing over like that's like if you look into it just a little bit more, I'm like, what's there? There's some like great deep stuff that he knows that he is not, quite telling us or doesn't want to or doesn't know how to. Some of the experts don't
Yeah.
know how to put it. So
Right.
that's part of what I've been doing is like just trying to decode what they say. Like there's one Steven Spielberg said, he goes, the trick to making a great movie is just don't be boring.
I think I've heard that before too.
Yeah.
I think I've heard
Yeah, I
that
think I
before.
heard that
And,
too.
well, I follow like that's kind of something that like Inkspots and we both follow, and a lot of people I know we follow the rule of cool. Like just it
Yeah.
might look wrong or it might look out of place, but if it looks cool, it it just sells it almost like it's there. Like it's not boring. It looks like if you have somebody just standing there, like just standing there. Like do something with that so there's some kind of motion and energy or something and make it look like it's moving or just make it look cool even if they're just standing there like and people are like oh they want to know more now like, why is this person standing there
Yeah.
so and
That's
even
cool.
if it's a boring scene make it not boring try to flip it and you do you find it difficult because I flip through like I said I don't really read because of the eyes but I flip through it you're heavy on show don't tell do you find that a little harder sometimes with like a lighter script and just trying to convey things through motion and emotion rather than just maybe like writing a narrative like them thinking this is what's going on
Yeah. I think so. I almost do it a little bit accidentally that I don't answer every question. And a lot of the feedback I get, like people will be like, well, it was actually almost a little confusing, but not enough that it like really annoyed me and I quit reading. They're like, it's more just like titillating, or I don't know if you could, there might be movies that are kind of like that where they just don't explain everything. And you don't feel like you got ripped off because it's kind of left open up to you to put the pieces together, or the questions can get answered on at a later date or something. Like even Earthbound was like that, Foreign Agent was like that, and sometimes that just happens kind of accidentally. But I'm usually focusing. I try not to do the narration thing, even though I like that as like a tool
yeah
too. But I'm like less familiar
Mhm.
with it, so I just kind of write almost like movie scripts, and then I'm adapting that, and it is like kind of like a show don't tell thing a little bit more for sure.
do you think because like I said the crowdfunding scene it's kind of iffy and stuff but also if you have like you're on your 10th campaign if you have more
Mhm.
irons in the fire you think you'll have more success so you think maybe it's better like let's say you're just an artist would you advise maybe people to be like, look, also learn to write? That way you can hire out, do more like a crowdfunder every so often. That way you're not, because drawing takes way longer than writing, without a doubt.
Mhm.
And you could bang out more books that way. Like you could do like two crowdfunders a year if you're writing one and then drawing the other one. Like, do you think maybe that's an advisable thing to have people do with times being the way they are, more irons in the fire in that regard? Because it's not easy.
Yeah, one thing I was thinking is like the perfect business plan for this for crowdfunding where it actually seems to work fairly well and semi-sustainable, knock on wood, is if you write and draw it yourself.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
so I'd almost even the inverse, like I would encourage writers to learn to draw. But the thing to that it'd be like a 10 to it'd be 10-year plan at minimum. Because that's
Right.
the other thing that kind of goes with it. The, your boy Zach pointed this out, but a lot of the books in CG are people's first books, and that's
Yeah.
great. And that's kind of part of the fun. But that probably won't be the one that's like destroying Marvel and replacing the mainstream. It will be in 10 years if they keep it up, then they'll be good enough and it might actually happen. But I encourage us all pursuing that individually. Like we could keep that in mind, like, hey, let's see where we're at in 10 years. And everyone in the meantime, try and get good at kind of like everything and see what we
Yeah,
can
I
do.
mean, don't get me, like I love working with Ink. Like him and I, we work great together. But finding someone you can mesh with like that isn't
Mhm.
always going to happen. And like we mesh really well. Like Billy and Plague mesh really well. Like sometimes you get those team ups that just really work. And
Yeah.
so, but doing it all like I did Absolute on my own. I didn't color it, but it's a black and white book. But it was a lot easier just having an editor and be like, okay, does this look good? Okay, good to go. I, so much easier, and the profit line is there. Like the profit margins are a
Mhm.
lot better in that regard. You don't have to worry about sharing any profits or paying anything out. But like advising writers to draw, like you said, it's maybe like a 10-year plan, but they also got to learn how to draw. Anyone can learn how to draw, yes. Can they learn how to draw well? I don't know. You know what I mean? So writing is kind of the same way. You can't really, you could teach somebody how to write sentence structure, grammar, but characterization, like getting into somebody else's head, is kind of a thing like not everyone can do. So like sometimes you have to have the teams. Who do you work? Would you like working more as a team, or do you prefer kind of like the solo route and just having your own free will?
Yeah, good question. I've actually been, collaborating a lot since CG began, and I do like it. It's kind of an art in itself, and part of it, like you're saying, there's a big part of it is just the chemistry, and even it's kind of like it's almost like the egos. Like if it's actually 50-50 ego, that's sometimes bad. But one way you can fix that is if I'm just the guy paying people, then I can just be kind of more the boss and then
Yeah.
it's simple. And then because
Right.
if you're kind of working with people, another thing I kind of learned as I've been hiring artists or whatever is like they really appreciate like just straight up strong communication of what you want. And because then it allows them to do their job better. And as I started, I was almost too like, if you think maybe we could do this, what do you think? Maybe, I don't know. And a lot of times they're just like, just tell me what you want. Let me do my job. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. So
Like,
settling into that.
yeah. How much? How
It's the
much?
whole
Oh no. Yeah. Go ahead, Angela.
no, just say the forming, storming, norming, the whole thing in regards to like in collaborations and working with others. Like there's a stage you go through in that whole thing. So it's
Yeah.
normal. It's part of the whole
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. How much? Like whenever you're working with somebody, let's say you're drawing the book. And like, well, maybe co-writing even. I don't know, like how your process is. But let's say you're drawing it and they're writing. How much free reign do you like to have, or do you prefer to have like a more structured, like Alan Moore, 4 staples in the right hand corner of the piece of paper? Like, where do you like to lie? Do you or you,
Yeah, it's been a little different for the various collaborations, but like with Monica, who works with Vaughn a lot and works with me on Cerberus, she drew Monster MD and stuff.
Yep, very
She,
talented.
yeah, she pretty much she's such a pro. She was one who kind of told me, just tell me what you want. My job is to do what you want. And because early on, I was kind of like, well, what do you think? And she's like, well, I want to make you happy. I want to do what you want. So tell me what you want.
That's cool.
And
Wow.
everything that she did, she turns a page in and it always exceeds my expectations. So it's never even an issue. I'm just like, all right, that's what we're doing because that's amazing. And there'll be I'll just catch like storytelling things if like, oh, I need like this to be foreshadowed, or this item, or the logistics of the action. There's actually a stairway here that comes up later. So in the background, so sometimes there'll be notes like that. And usually you catch him in the penciling thumbnail stage kind of thing. And then with Jared, that's another kind of big frequent collaborator. And that one, it's a little bit like I just have him involved in every aspect of every process, and his kind of outlook and fun things that he brings to it just bleed into it. But like even with the writing, I sent him the outline of what we kind of brainstormed together. Then I send an outline of what needs to happen in the scene, fairly detailed. And then he turns it back, writes it, gives it back to me, and then I change it however I want without even worried about hurting his feelings. Even like I could rewrite the entire thing. But doing it that way, we would get like a lot of his fun idiosyncrasies were bleeding into it. But we also get like I can control the structure exactly how I want it and stuff like that. And that was kind of a fun best of both worlds kind of
Hey, Huck.
procedure. And it's almost it's a little more work in some ways doing it that way, but the end product was really fun to do that.
Do you ever have that? Oh.
Oh, no. Go ahead.
Do you ever have that though in your, like sometimes in looking at things, either as in regards to art, do you ever have anything where you're like, I wish it was different, or I wish I could change this or that, the other, or does it ever come up?
From if it's a collaboration, there's been a few that like don't work out, and as a part of that's growing process for me too. But even one was like Nick Hunter, who's an amazing artist, works with Peter Samedi on King Cryptid, and him and I are still buds, and we like email back and forth and stuff. But we were gonna maybe do, and we still probably will collaborate. But we were doing one collaboration, and I was kind of being too nitpicky. I was like, all right, like this is good, but can you do this, and this, and sometimes I guess if you can describe it too with like red lines. So if I do like red lines over his drawing, showing him what I want, and I did that a few times, and he's like, you know what, I think we should go our separate ways. Like I just don't want to be this level of like you going over my stuff. And I was like,
maybe you should have used blue instead of red.
Maybe the red angered him.
Red's like,
yeah, and it just depends. Yeah, and he's great, and we're still friends. But then even with like Jared, for example, Jared doesn't mind. We're kind of both. We're really, there's almost like no ego for either of us. Kind of, we're just trying to make the great book. And that doesn't mean that in that case, Nick Hunter, I guess by the definition of how I'm using it, he has an ego, but it's not like that's bad. It's just like that's the situation. It's actually good in a way. It's like awesome. But me and Jared, it's like,
which is really good.
Yeah. Me and Jared, like I'll draw red over his stuff a fair amount, and we kind of grow together a little bit. And Jared's been just naturally, because part of what it was my success from Earthbound 2 that I kind of was able to bring Jared into the fold. I was putting him kind of on the payroll basically. He suddenly got a huge workload, so he's been like just drawing a ton, coloring a ton. He colored all of Cerberus for me, and then he drew Hotel Story. So he's just been improving as he goes, and that's been a lot of fun to watch too. I think like his potential is kind of interesting. Like he could end up being like super, and he's been getting really good at writing, and he's been sending me his personal project scripts as he's writing it, and I'm like, I just can't wait for these to be a comic. They're so good. And I have nothing to do with those. I'm like, dude, I'll publish them for you if you want though. And he's like, yeah, we can talk about it when the time comes.
Now, when you're looking for like an artist for one of your projects or someone to collaborate with, do you try to find somebody that has that? Because this Hotel Story has that animation style. Do you try to find somebody with that style, or do you like try to get them to interpret how they want?
Yeah, it would depend, but in general, with Jared, our collaboration works really nice because we're kind of on the same spectrum of that animation style, and I can kind of draw his style. He can kind of draw my style. It bleeds in and it mixes together well. And that might not be possible with a different. So if it was working with a different art style, it would be more of them doing kind of like everything. Like even Monica's a little bit more on that spectrum though. She's a little more animation-y. So that's kind of just my taste. I do like that.
You just gravitate towards it. Yeah. It's something it's your flavor. Yeah.
It's what? Sorry, Jason.
No.
It's your flavor. I just saw a question that I wanted.
Yeah, no, ask. Yeah, Chad has questions. We wanna answer them.
So down goes solo. Do you ever share drawing duties on a page? Someone does characters and someone else does backgrounds, something like that.
I haven't exactly done that yet, but I definitely want to do that. I have someone in mind. Actually, Facundo Ezequiel is a cool CG artist, lives in Argentina. And I was like, oh, we should do something. Someone even mentioned it too. Other people have mentioned it. They're like, oh, do it like Dave Simon Gerhard with Cerebus. And where you have a background artist and then a character artist. And manga is often a lot like that.
Yep.
And like, oh man, if I could, I should definitely just test that out. So I do want to do that. It's like on the to-do list.
Yeah, good question, Solo. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah, Solo.
Yeah, a lot of great people in chat. Yeah. So, well, as far as like the crowdfunding scene and stuff like that, who, without naming names, like, but do you like pick up books that don't have that style? Like, what is outside of your wheelhouse that you kind of gravitate towards in a way? Like, you know what I mean? Like I have a Sam Key style, but I really love, like, Joe Mad. Like, it's outside my wheelhouse, but I still love it.
Yeah. I really liked Rich Ayala's cockroach one. Yeah, Roach Balls.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Roach Balls.
Yeah. And that's one where like I would collaborate with him, but he's like busy too, and it's just if it ever comes up. And then Brendan Swan's Disintegration Street, I really liked. It felt like it kind of came out of nowhere. And then from Brendan Swan too, I liked Disintegration Street so much that I did publish it on my account and send it out to my email list and got him like 300 sales or something like that.
Oh, I think I remember that. I wanted to pick it up and finances weren't there for me and I never was able to get to it. I remember that. It looked really cool.
Oh, yeah. And so I've only done that once and it worked out pretty good. Were you saying something, Angela?
Sorry. No, which is the book? I missed the name of it.
Disintegration Street, and he just finished it, so it's 5 volumes total. It's like this. It's manga sized. It basically is a manga. It's like he's like, I think he speaks Japanese fluently, and so it's like he reads nothing but manga mostly, and so it's good to almost just think of it like this, just straight up is a manga, and it's great though, and I think I've done that once where I publish it kind of on my account, and I take like 10% and give the rest to him, and then he just fulfills it. I might do it once more with him, and I wouldn't do that with like anyone unless it really felt like just right. But I definitely responded, and I actually hired him to write something for me because I like Disintegration Street so much, and he wrote a great, awesome, fun, like kind of manga style script for me, and I'm going to try and get that out sooner or later too. Yeah, and
no, that'll be cool. That's great. That'll be interesting to see that take on it. Now, when you write, what's your process? Like, you put on music? Are you on the keyboard? Like, you notepad? How do you go about it?
Yeah. Real quick too, just to add on, because I was going to say
no,
I forgot.
Yeah,
but
you're good.
As far as following CG, I do have a little short list of writers because I feel like CG is in this interesting situation where we're all getting like spurned by the mainstream, and they're kind of ignoring us. I say we're like fourth dimensional beings. Like, they just can't even see us, yet we are better than them. But and so I keep a list of like the writers where I'm like, if ever it was possible in this hypothetical situation to like replace the mainstream, who would you want on like Superman, or who, even if it's not a case of like writing Superman, but it's like that's one good hypothetical way to put it, but who's kind of out there, who's a talent that's sort of getting screwed, and maybe they aren't even making a living in CG yet, but they are definitely, their skills are there. And if they're ever collaborations, if they're ever paired with a great artist, they really could do something special. And, that's one, like, even I might miss people, but like Mike Murphy is on the list. John from Beyond is on the list.
John Hervey's great.
Yeah. And so that's just a few. There's like 5 or 6, 7 even, like there's a lot of great writers in CG. And I just try and kind of keep a list in my head. I'm like, yeah, these people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to get them all. Like, you'd have to back every single project, and that's impossible, to really get a gist of like who are really, it's really who you're intaking, and you see the book. You're going to pick up what interests you anyway, whenever you see it on a stream. Like, that's what these are for. And if you're watching this and you're like, what are we talking about? You click the link, Hotel Story, link is in the top of the chat, and you can check it out. We're going to get to it in a minute, but yes. And I mean, comics are a visual medium, and artists sometimes are overlooked. I mean, writers, they're sometimes overlooked. They really are, because the artist is out in the forefront. Like everybody sees that first. That kind of brings the people in. So a lot of the times that hashtag just a writer, it's kind of like they get lost in the crowd a little bit. So
Yeah, it's an
yeah.
interesting problem to be like a talented writer, and then you're like, all right, what from here? It's like you kind of have to become friends with a good artist or learn to draw over 10 years, which is
Yeah.
also a possibility. But
Yeah.
yeah, like befriending an artist can be kind of challenging and interesting in itself. But so to
Well,
answer really
yeah.
quick your writing question, I always write in screenplay format, and in my 20s I was kind of almost pursuing that a little more than comics. And read screenwriting books and wrote. It was about 15 screenplays I wrote of like they have to be
Oh
like
wow.
feature length, so they're like 100 to 120 pages.
Mhm.
And like the 15th one was like Earthbound, and that was the first one that was any good. When I read it later, I was like, oh, it's not so bad. But a lot of them, you're reading them and you're like, oh, it's bad. Like at the time when you're writing it, you think it's good. I think
Yeah.
that delusion is like what keeps young artists going. So it's like it's kind of a positive thing, but it's funny that's there. But yeah, I write screenplay format. I always write first thing in the morning with a cup of coffee, and I've only got from the time that I take my first sip of coffee, I've got max 4 hours before like I kind of get brain fog these days, and kind of like can't do much more writing for the day after that.
Right.
When I was younger, I did have days where I would literally write one full screenplay in one day, and I'd write for like 20
Whoa.
hours straight. That only happened like once
Wow.
or twice. But it's weird having that inspiration and you're just like, hell yeah. But that's another one where like you read it 6 months later and you're like, it's terrible. But
Yeah, there's a reason why you wrote it in one day.
yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah. And I noticed too with when I'm writing, everyone's different, but I'm definitely open to rewriting. I do a fair amount of redrafting. I do a fair amount of like scrapping everything and starting over again.
Mm.
And that kind of helps me in my process too.
Do you whenever you're
Do
working
you
on a book?
save any of those?
No, do you save any of the what? I can remember my question.
Do you save like? Do you ever go back to those things that you scrap and try to see like, can I make any adjustments or can I add some of this to another story or anything?
Yeah. Some can get sort of cannibalized, and then elements can get used like in later stories, or if it's like a
Nice.
trope or a character or something. But it's funny too. Like it is like a lot of them. I'll be like, oh, maybe I can just fix it up, and with my skills that I have now as a writer, I can take an old crappy script, fix it up, no problem, and then it'll be good to go. And I'll just start reading it, and it's just so cringy. I'm like, this is unsavable. I can't even save this. Like, so
No.
that a lot of my early stuff was like that.
Aw.
That's speaking of life advice or writing advice. That's one of Mark Miller's again borderline esoteric pieces of advice. Is he says like live life first. Don't worry about becoming a great writer when you're so young. He's like first you live life, then you can be a good writer once you. And I've like that's sort of been true for me. Like just as of it's not even like you get more mature necessarily, but yeah, it's like that naturally happens over time. So 20 versus 30 is 10 years of living. Like even I got more comfortable writing power structures and like nested power like even how like for a world building point of view, like just how like orders and like CIA and FBI and like anything like that, like when I was 20 I didn't know how naturally anything like that fit together. I'd feel way like 2 left feet if I'm ever trying to write like a scene that involves police or whatever. And now just after 10 years maybe just watching some Columbo or whatever,
Nice.
I can like write a police scene and it doesn't make me cringe if I try to read it later or whatever, you know.
Yeah, and with life comes experience. So the longer you live, the more knowledge you're going to gain, and the more you can like get that into what you're going to try to put out. So it does make sense in that regard. And there are some like savants who are just like naturally good at like 15. They pump out like the Great Gatsby or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's just every now and then you get those rare instances, but yeah.
And you know what happens in that case too is I like some of the things I think of is like Orson Welles, like he did Citizen Kane when he was 25, which is like absolutely insane. But
Mm.
when he was 17, his dad died and he was out on the street. And then like at 19, he was working at a theater company. At 22, he was like running the theater company. And then like a doing radio shows and stuff. And then at 25, he makes Citizen Kane. So
Yeah.
like it kind of makes a little more sense when it's like whatever the hard life of the earlier generations hitting it younger kind of thing.
Yeah, well, a hard life does bring experience to life. Like you get a different perspective when you've
Mm-hmm.
been through hardships. So you can be very young, go through a really hard life, and actually be pretty wise. Like they say they're wise beyond their years.
Yeah.
So it's usually because of terrible hardships that they've been through
Yeah.
in their lives. Yeah. So whenever you are working, like let's say you're the one drawing it and you're working, like Zach wrote something and you got to draw it. Do you guys, is it kind of a Marvel method you like, or do you like to get something fully fledged out?
Yeah, it's a little more Marvel with me and Zach. Like we kind of do email back and forth brainstorming, and usually that'll be a big part of my opportunity to contribute writing wise because he'll then go write kind of the script, but he writes a pretty loose script, and I think he doesn't write dialogue, so it is like Marvel style.
Mhm.
Then I kind of convert it, and then I'll usually just plug in dialogue, and then he'll adjust it as need be, which is heavily, like fairly heavily, he might adjust it, and then it's kind of good to go. So it is an interesting mix of us both doing, but I have a lot of freedom from every step of the way, and definitely
Nice.
even like I'm trying to think of with Runner, which is the most recent, where the guy fights the giant. I kind of changed and added to the all the action, the like, kind of limited action scenes where the giant grabs him and tries to eat him, and I have him like stab through the giant's he gets slammed into the giant's empty eye socket, and then
Nice.
from there he stabs the giant in the brain, and then the giant
Oh,
falls and he squirts out of the giant's eye socket. So like
Sweet.
that all just came up in the drawing. That
ooh.
wasn't in the script.
Nice. That's really cool. Well, we got like what, a few minutes here. I mean, we could go over the
Mm.
hour. It doesn't matter because I could ask you questions about the creative process. I love that kind of stuff. What tools you use, what programs you
Yeah.
use. Do you like this and that? We can go on for another hour if we really wanted to. But we got a book. You have a book that we're pitching and we're going over. In case you, I'm gonna play the trailer because it's really dope. So everybody stick around.
Synthesize.
You must be hamming it up for a big tip.
Sin. The. Size. 3 simple syllables. They may not mean much to you now, but by the end of this night, they will.
There's a witch in this hotel. My mission is to stop her. Could mean certain doom for many if she completes her spell.
We're bringing that knowledge back with us to the real world, but we're giving it a special touch.
Don't suppose I know you.
Adrian,
You're a famous party pooper.
at your service.
Yes.
Hey,
Hey.
nice. Yeah, me and
it's-
Jared collabed on that, and it went pretty well. It got a good response.
Yeah,
And we're
I
gonna
love
try
it,
and
man.
make an animated short film together too.
That would be really
Awesome.
cool, man. Yeah, I mean, it's. I like that kind of animation. You know what I mean? It's not like overly movie, and I do that opening scene where like you kind of zoom in on the machete guy, and I'm like, I love that, dude. That's pretty cool stuff, man. Nice.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I like the animated trailers. They're fun. Frog has one, and I think they're nice for the audience as well. It's a little mix up from like, and I've done the pan over, and stuff, and there's nothing wrong with them. But the animated ones, they're a little nice because people see them all the time. But if it's animated, dude, I could watch a cartoon a bunch of times. So yeah.
Mhm.
Nice. We might
I
be
just
getting some new eyes on this trailer. Duck Bacon
Really?
and Phantasmagorical, maybe. The first
Ooh,
time they've
there you
seen it.
go.
Oh,
Nice.
Duck
What
Bacon
were
and
you
Fanta,
saying,
good people. Yeah, go ahead,
Angela?
Angela.
No, I
sorry.
just appreciate. I noticed that Monica did the cover, and it just I appreciate how she really did lean on your style to create that because she herself. I mean, I when I first saw it, I thought it was your cover, so it's just like, yeah,
Cool.
it's really sweet.
Yeah, that
And then
yeah.
also too, Jared, he also kind of took along your style as well, so it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, all three of us kind of draw a little bit similar, a little bit of that kind of animation feel.
Yeah.
And it is
Yeah.
a fun way to kind of collaborate, just having that overlapping kind of aesthetic or whatever.
So what is this about, my friend?
Yeah, so this one, it's kind of simple, which I like as part of the pitch is the story is like literally one sentence, and it's a witch casting a mass sacrifice spell from the top floor suite of a hotel. And then it's the story is like, will it work or won't it work? And are these people going to survive or are they going to be sacrificed so that she can live
Wow.
another 500 years?
That's
And it's
insane.
sometimes movie plots are like that. So this plot's kind of cinematic. Like the actual story is just like the strategy of surviving, of what they do. Do they get to the roof to try to escape? Do they have? There's one kind of interloping angel who can kind of possess dead bodies, who's trying to help a small group of the survivors to actually survive, and he's trying to kind of foil the witch's plan. And yeah, it just plays out like that. There's a lot of like the actual like the action is like very gory, so it's like kind of almost technically like a horror story. And you have the things like disembodied heads talking shit or whatever. And a lot of the gore is a lot of fun, and it almost like a little bit of a comedy, but it's not the type of comedy where it like takes away from the stakes, like Marvel style, where they're cracking quips when they should be fighting or whatever. Like this is more like the absurdity of the gore will make you chuckle
Nice.
sometimes and stuff like that.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I'll be watching, action movie or horror movie, and the kill is just so horrific. You just bust out laughing because
Yeah.
it's just like it's so over the top, and like there's no way, but it's just so great. Like people think you're a madman when you're laughing in the theater. But yeah, I like seeing that kind of stuff. It makes it
Yeah.
fun.
This is more like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Fanta said that she did a video for Hotel Story. Jeez.
Oh.
So Fanta on her channel. So subscribe to Fanta.
She's saying, "Don't say that I'm a first-time viewer." Is what she's saying.
No.
Yes, she's yelling at you, Narwhal. How dare you?
I gotta
Yeah.
go check. I remember it now that you say it. Phantasmagorical.
Yeah, Fanta just did one for Absolute One Stormy Night. Thank you very much, Fanta. I appreciate that. And Fanta is CG darling. We really appreciate her and all the work she does. How did Hotel Story come about? How did the idea get fleshed out and where did you get? Yeah.
This was actually kind of what Angela was mentioning earlier. It was like a half-written script I had waiting around. I'd started it like kind of after Earthbound and Foreign Agent and CG had done well, and I was like, what should a new follow-up script be? And I kind of had this idea, but I don't think it was even like The Witch was even necessarily it yet, but it was the beginning of like a hotel with like chaos breaking out, then characters at the hotel and what they're up to. Kind of loosely inspired by Demons 2, which is also very similar kind of premise, but it's in an apartment complex. And the idea where you find like the plot, there's a thing they call it, if it's like multiple characters, and no one in particular is like the main character, an ensemble, like an ensemble plot where, you're like jumping around the building, checking in on people and seeing what they're up to, what they're doing to try and survive. So I wanted to do that. And me and Jared had worked on a few things and we're like, what should we do if we do collaborate? And I kind of finally made the call. I'm like, all right, this is the one. We're going to start this one, rewrite it from scratch, but kind of keep this idea, but make it more simple, even make it about a witch mass sacrifice. And so from there, we kind of started developing characters, developing like the plot and the story. Well, a big one, the way this one plays out too, is it's kind of like the magic systems, of the witch's spell and how that works, how they all play out is like a big part of like the fun of the action and the survival. Like just the fact that the one interloping angel, like he possesses dead bodies, like that comes up in a lot of different fun ways where he's like trying to help people survive. Like you can even imagine like he could strategically kill someone to use their body, but that would be kind of a negative thing, So that's what I think he says at one point. He's like, the spell is to sacrifice everyone's soul. He's like, so if push comes to shove, I can just kill you guys, and then I'll save your everlasting soul if I kill you. And they're like, thanks for that.
Nice. Yeah, it's a fun looking project and it's a cool book, and I love the idea. It reminds me, I mean, obviously very different, but like 4 Rooms, or something in that regard. It kind of has that a little bit of that vibe to it, where there's like a bunch of characters and stuff like that. So that's pretty. And I like that you have like there's a fantastic twist to it, like a supernatural twist to it. I like that. It makes it a little more unique and different than just like a flat out horror, murder mystery type thing. So
thanks.
Yeah, it's a good little thing there. Nice job, Narwhal.
What's the Obel video?
Is there a video? We did do a little animation. I
Play
think
the
it's not
Oval
on the
video.
campaign.
That's what Alex is requesting.
Oh
Oh.
yeah,
I don't know what
that's
that
on
means.
my YouTube. It's like a YouTube short, and
Oh.
it's
Which you
just a
should
guy
also
throwing a
subscribe to.
briefcase.
Yeah, NARWHAL
Yeah.
has some really cool videos on setting a scene and
Oh yeah.
and
Well,
filming and yeah, I really love
yeah,
it.
his YouTube link is in the description below, so everybody, yeah, definitely subscribe. I'm subscribed, so
Thanks.
Yeah, good stuff.
I lurk from time to time, whenever I'm free.
Nice.
I do like one thing I also really love about this campaign: streamlined tiers. Like you don't have 4,000 tiers. I like. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with that, and I don't mind them sometimes. But I like the fact that yours is pretty straightforward. So let's go over the tiers real quick. The obviously the first one is the book, right?
Yeah, book. It'll be like 128 pages. It's part one of two. Part one is it's like, I don't want to say it's self-contained, but it's like it's a good chunk. Like it feels like a healthy meal of story. It's, and then it finishes in part two, and the whole story together will be like double that. So like 260 pages.
Whoa.
And it's just one night, so it's zoomed into kind of a cinematic level of detail too, of like the plan and what to do to survive in the action, like hundreds of pages of action almost, especially in part two. There's one part, because the guy can possess dead bodies, so like there's one part where he has to kind of, it's in part two, and this isn't really spoilers, I won't give anything away, other than there's a cool action scene where he has to fight like a crowd of possessed bad guys. And at that point, they've kind of already been possessed. So the only way to save their soul is to kill him. So he has a knife. He can throw it at one dude, kill him, possess that guy, pull the knife out of his own neck, throw it at someone else, possess them, pull it out of his own neck. So it's like a chain reaction of him like
Wow.
killing and possessing people, like spreading through the battlefield kind of.
That's
So we get to
cool.
draw that. It's kind of gonna be cool.
Nice.
Mhm.
That'll be really fun. That'll be cool. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
What's the
Mhm.
second tier here?
Then it's Hotel Story plus the Oval, which is Jared's 48-page black and white horror comic, which is all him. And that's a great comic in its own right. I really loved it. And I just wanted to include it in the campaign. Getting both those is like a really good debut kind of for Jared. So it's a really good, like, just to catch both of his kind of debut
Nice.
comics, one collaboration with me and one of his solo. They're both great.
Sweet. And then the last tier, I think, is
Yeah, we're including a
bundle.
making of, and we're going to make it pretty big and detailed because we have all the emails back and forth that we use to write the
Wow.
script together.
Oh, geez.
So we'll share a lot of that. It's kind
Incredible.
of fun collaboration, and the brainstorming is all like there, and a lot of the early art. This one too, because it was two of us, a lot of it is like two brains instead of one. A little more work was able to go into it. That serves the story in pretty ways that really pay off. But one specifically is, this is kind of the first project I've ever done where we literally had like iterations of character designs back and forth for like a month or more, getting every character design to fit perfectly with who they are and how they serve the story. Whereas like usually if I do it, I just kind of, have some of it internalized and I can make it work okay. And I just do it pretty fast. But we were like really figuring it out to make it perfect.
Nice. Yeah, dude, the price point's fantastic on this. Like, you even have it marked down. That's definitely, if I like I said, I know times are tight, but if you have a little splurging money, I advise getting that because you're going to get an insane amount of content for a very low end price. So,
Thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah, it'll be like
kudos for that.
three perfect bound books. The
Jeez,
Oval's the
dude.
shortest at 48, but the other two are pretty long. And it'll be they're all pretty good reads. Be
But
fun to
dude,
check out.
I've seen campaigns with 3 48-page, like, you get 3 covers, whatever, and it's way more than that. So I mean, you're this is a great deal. I jump on that, and like I said, I know times are tough. If you can't afford it, obviously get what you can, or even like this is in demand, right? So it's not like you're not closing out anytime soon.
No, yeah, closing out probably end of January. So like 2 more months.
Okay,
Oh,
nice.
okay.
Which is nice because people
Okay.
are Christmas season, not too many people are backing usually.
Yeah.
And so they kind of recuperate a week or two after the holiday. And then I advise people to do, for one, you could share out either this video or the campaign on your social media. That way you'll have it, but you can also click the little heart button here and follow the campaign. That way
Yeah.
if he does any updates, you get notified and you're like, oh, I got to back that. and you
Oh,
get
cool.
back. Yeah. So
That's a
it's-
good pitch. I forgot about that you could hit the heart. That's cool.
Yeah, you could hit the little
Yeah.
heart button. Yeah, or you could just stalk Narwhal and
Mhm.
remember to back it that way.
Follow me on Twitter is a best way to kind of stay abreast. But
Yeah. We like
Good
the
stuff.
breasts. Nice. Yeah, everybody go check out Hotel Story. I mean, like his time to campaign. Narwhal, he delivers. He has great content. Great art, great stories, great. We could sit here forever, and I could talk to you and go in depth. But check it out. Link is pinned to the top of the chat and in the description below. So yeah, I love the stuff you put out, dude. It's your brain is a fascinating thing to me as well. The way you think.
Good stuff.
Like watching your YouTube, you always have like a little advice or like little tidbits and stuff like that, and it's great. Everybody go subscribe to Narwhal.
Yeah, it helps me to try to repeat stuff that might help or work or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's something like I try to do with my I'm one of those guys we said earlier. Like I can't really tell people like I know how to do something, but my way of conveying it isn't always the best.
It's esoteric.
Yeah, it's esoteric. So I try my best to do it, but I usually just talk or just blabber nonsense whenever I'm either in my videos or if I'm live by myself or topicless. But you tend to give out some great advice or like some little nuggets here and there, and watching your channel, and it's fun stuff. And you also do like what is it the round table with Phil, Irene, and Hyper Wizard. Yeah. So you guys
Creative
rotate.
Block on Thursdays.
That's Creative Block. That's it.
Yeah.
So everybody, I'm a fan of all of them.
Nice.
So we're at the top of the hour, a little over, which is good. Which means we had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. Angela, do you have any questions for Narwhal? As a chat, have any questions for Narwhal?
There were questions from the beginning I didn't address because I didn't want to get in the way of the flow. But is Nards is the thing? Is that what we're calling Narwhal enthusiasts?
Yeah. I'm gonna try and make Nards stick, and I think I'm on the next
I like
campaign.
Nards.
Yeah, I'm gonna give
I wanna be a
everyone
nerd.
a business. Yeah, I'm gonna give everyone a business card that says like official Nard or something like that. I was the early version. For a while I had cards that said the Narwhal Mafia, but now it's Nards. We're changing it.
Yeah, it's a little shorter.
Nice.
It's a little shorter, a little nicer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like you can yell, "You Nard!" I mean, it's just like it's so metal.
Yeah.
Anyway,
metal.
I like that. And then also, Noah, I don't know if he's still here. He might have a family dinner. But Narwhal, have you done an ice bath in the river?
Yeah, not exactly ice, but you just jump in the river and it's cold. I
Yeah.
have done many a time.
You're out there on all the waters. Like you're almost near the ocean. You just want to just jump in the ocean.
The place I was previous to this was really close to the beach, and you could just run there. And I did do that a couple times. But
Yeah, ice baths in the morning. They're supposed to invigorate. I can't even take a cold shower. I'm like, no, screw that. But they're good for you. Like lowering your body temperature for a couple minutes and stuff like that, and then it's actually invigorates you. It's good for your body throughout the whole day.
It is good for you.
I know what's good for me. I just don't always follow it. But anybody else have any inquiries?
Penguin plunge. No, that's all I got. Just a lot of
Nice.
people in there affirming. Oh, K-pop just arrived. Hello, K-pop.
What's up, K-pop? She's gonna be going live soon, I think. So good to see you, K-pop. Angela, do you have any questions for Narwhal?
No, that's all I got. But I had a lot of fun.
I have one last question that I ask at the top of the hour. Narwhal, if you could work with anyone living or dead, who would it be?
Oh, good question. Maybe Matthias Bergara. I really like his art these days. So that's a quick off the top of my head. He's still alive and he's good.
Well, yeah, they don't have to be dead. You don't have to resurrect anyone.
Yeah,
that a requirement.
Jesus.
Yeah, I would work with Jesus. Yes, you might get a lot of backers that way. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, thanks for coming on, Narwhal. I had a lot of fun. Stick around and for the after party, I guess, if you want. And hail the chat. Thank you guys. Appreciate everybody swinging. Angela, thank you for highlighting everybody and getting questions asked. Everybody, go back. Hotel Story and Backfrog G. Link is in the description below, as well as sign up for Absolute One Stormy Night. I'll be launching that sometime next year. So, silent comic. Hopefully, I did it right. We'll find out.
Yeah.
So, thanks again, everybody, and have a great one. Later.